course, the your calls and text welcome as well. 573-874-9390. But first,
oh no,
John.
Oh,
There's
no.
always the but.
I know
John.
where this is going.
Oh, I got a story on butts too.
Oh,
I do.
don't
Did you
know
see
where that one's going.
I put that on stuff. We'll get to that later. I put that. We've got this show prep page. It's called Stuff. That's one of my favorite sections.
So you put the butt thing under stuff.
Yeah. Okay, but it's an interesting story. So we'll talk about that as well, and we'll have some fun because it's Christmas time. We have to be fun. Now, John,
sir,
there's lots of negative news. There's lots of reasons to cry in your beer. The borders are open. Inflation. I mean, yeah, it's down to what 3.5%.
Woo.
And
depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, right. I mean, core inflation is still up at 4 or 5%. But I don't know where to start here. I don't know where to start. Sometimes I get, sometimes us more seasoned and wise and sage individuals get a little bit, we get a little bit, Brian Hauswirth just walked in. Speaking of wise and sage. Okay. Yeah. And once in a while we get a little bit cynical,
Cranky.
a little we scratch our heads at the younger generation, and will this be the end of the age? Is it all over? I mean, what are these young skulls full of mush, as our long-lost radio colleague, Rush Limbaugh, long departed, said? What are they thinking? I walk in and I say, Hannah, I'm so excited. I can't believe it. Guess whose birthday it is? And Hannah goes, I don't know whose birthday it is. And I said, it's her birthday. segment, that would be all if not for this.
Oh, so
it's
close.
another birthday. What are you saying?
You almost had the name of John's segment right.
I got it right. Isn't
No.
that would be all if not for this.
John, you wanna set
John?
it straight?
I've been practicing.
Isn't that it? I thought that was it.
I've been practicing. Did I get it wrong? Well, I wrote it down, but I can't read my own writing. Okay. Well, if it weren't for that, it's another birthday today. And thankfully, Hannah heard about this. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here we go. Here we go.
I've lived up in one time in Northwest Missouri, not far from Carrollton, which a lot of people don't realize. But tremendous. He was also well known for he was he could be controversial. Let's be honest. John, I don't know if you remember, John F. Kennedy would not stay at his house.
There were allegations he was connected to the mob, and and
allegations. He always denied that.
If Hauswirth hasn't confirmed it, it's not true.
That's right. Kitty Kelly wrote a book about it, but what I remember him most was he did the unthinkable in 1977. He actually brought Dean Martin onto the Jerry Lewis telethon, and that was, people fell out of their chairs. That was a huge deal because the two were, when I was growing up, you remember this, they were as big as probably the three of them actually were huge. But I don't know.
Peter Lawford and Sammy Davis, the Rat Pack.
Yes, exactly. And Lewis and Martin, I don't know if they maybe had a falling out, or I'm not sure, but bottom line is Sinatra was able to bring him on the telethon, the Labor Day telethon for muscular dystrophy, and did that. But that music is just absolutely, it's just really incredible. It really is.
Now, Hannah.
Well, and as if it wasn't bad enough that I didn't know who that first lady was, he found one of our other coworkers in the building from our sister station, Clear 99.
You can out her.
Yeah, he asked Liz, who's just a couple years older than I am, the same question, and she said, I know who Sinatra is.
There you go.
And then I volunteered that they were just glints in their parents' eyes back then.
Among other things.
And I said, another thing, but that's okay. Okay, so
that's awesome.
At any rate, so
it's all fun.
We're going to reprise a little Warwick and a little Sinatra in honor of their birthday today.
Sounds good.
Because Hannah said, I refuse. I'm only going to play hair band bumper music.
Now, that is not true. I said Taylor Swift.
Oh, well, okay. We can do Taylor
Frank
Swift.
Sinatra also sang it. He sang a song called I Did It My Way.
Yep.
We need to play that this
morning.
We
will do that.
That is a huge song.
Yeah.
He also sang New York, New York. I mean,
he did one on Chicago, too.
I mean, the guy was just,
he also
had a great
did one
voice.
on America. America is the land I love. A very patriotic song.
And he was at, I think he may have sang at President Reagan's inauguration. I'm almost sure
I believe so.
He also had a huge sort of kind of novelty hit with High Hopes.
Yeah. High hopes. I've got high hopes. That's right. All right, well,
Apple
enough
Tree
of that.
in the Sky Hopes.
And then I love it. There's another one that we will play before the day's out that is just it's a great song. It's one of those when you have a bounce in your step and you're on top of the world, great song. And we'll play that as well. So for those of you who are Sinatra fans, you'll love it. For those of you who aren't, please indulge me. That's just, I can't help myself when I listen to, when I'm not listening to 93.9 The Eagle or KWOS, depending on where I'm at, and I can get the best signal, because when I go south, I lose the signal so that I can get KWOS. The only station I listen to is either the Pandora or a Sirius Sinatra station. and I monitor some of the news channels. That's about it. What a boring guy, right, John? Doesn't get more boring than that. Yeah.
I bet you even played T-Bone on Fly Me to the Moon.
Oh, baby. Yeah. Well, those were the days, I'm telling you. All right, when we come back, well, Stephanie's out today, right? So we've got the Daily DC Rundown when we come back in a few minutes here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Randy Tobler, along with producer Hannah, John Marsh, and Brian Hauswirth.
evidence to impeach the president. Some have changed their minds on that in recent weeks. But the way that this timeline breaks down is that the House Rules Committee is going to consider the resolution that would authorize the impeachment inquiry.
And it's the D.C. Daily Rundown with Stephanie Bell, and she took a little testosterone this morning, so I'm subbing for her. We're transitioning to a different
Bless her heart.
persona. God love her. Hey, that was a little report on what's going on today in the House. They will have, I understand that Ken Buck maybe is the last holdout. John, is that what you've heard? That's the latest thing I read last night before I closed my eyes, that there's one or two holdouts to get enough votes so that they can just launch the inquiry. And we need to make it clear that it's an inquiry only. They're not making a vote for impeachment.
No, that's what we're hearing out of the Capitol watchers, and it's not a done deal yet, which after everything on Hunter Biden came out just last week, you'd think that they were closer to moving ahead with the inquiry.
Can I just say I roll my eyes a little bit every time I hear the I word, impeachment, because ever since they did it to Trump, I feel like it's viewed as just a way to get back at someone you don't like. I don't feel like it has as much weight as it used to.
Well, historically, it backfires. It backfires on the party that initiates it. It backfired on the Republicans with Clinton. It backfired on the Democrats with Trump. So they better have their P's and Q's in order and their I's dotted and their T's crossed.
Like, you can't impeach someone just because you don't like them. Sorry.
It's
That's
also
not how that works.
You're right. It's also being reported that Jamie Raskin is going around and revealing stuff from the White House that James Comer hadn't revealed to his caucus. Jamie Raskin, I'm telling you, when I go to the reptile house at the zoo, I see Raskin and I see the Raskin and Schumer display.
I thought you said the rectal house.
No, the
and I was confused.
reptile. John, is it my medical background that she needs to go there with all of these things all the time? Is that what's going on?
I don't know. I guess she's picking up on the clinical speak there, doctor.
My head's just always in the gutter. I apologize.
No, the reptile.
Okay.
Some do say reptile.
I don't know if I've ever heard that, but that doesn't mean anything.
The reptile house. Okay. Right. And Supreme Court apparently has responded to Jack Smith's inquiry or request in the public interest to rule and leapfrog the regular appeals process in Trump's immunity claim. When he was president, he says, "Hey, you can't go after me for election interference. I have basically blanket immunity. I can do anything I want when I'm president." Supreme Court says that they are going to give Donald Trump's team until December 20th at 4 p.m. to file a reply to Smith's petition. So this is they did this with requests for the Nixon tapes back in the 70s. There's been a couple others. Well, with the vaccine mandate, they sort of circumvented the usual process.
They talked about the immunity angle when Bill Clinton was being impeached.
You're absolutely right. And you know what? I would say, now those of you who are MAGA, would say, well, wait a minute here. This is extraordinary. And, they shouldn't have to. You know what? You can take it one of two ways. I would say if the Democrats maintain that, in fact, this is a pro-MAGA position, the Democrats say that no one's above the law, no one should get treated specially, I would say Trump should have his day in appeals court. The Supreme Court could say, no, you Democrats, you've said that, this is usual order of business, so we're just going to let the appeals court process take out. Because, of course, Trump wants to delay this until the election, until after he's president, so that were he to be somehow, I guess that would give him immunity at that point. So we'll have to see where that goes. And we also have Volodymyr Zelensky's coming with his tin cup, and he's visiting today.
No.
Asking for more money. More money. He's down to his last $2 billion, I understand.
Poor guy.
So we'll have to see where that goes. And Hamas has threatened to kill all the hostages. Not a with Chris Arps himself, my colleague down the road, a little bit east of here in News Talk STL, and he's got his own show along with Tim Jones there in the afternoons. And Chris, of course, you see him on Newsmax and all over. Chris, you're going to be in the next cabinet. I'm pretty sure of that you're going to be in the next cabinet.
Dr. Tobler, good morning. First of all, I want to make sure, did you get your check for the month? What an introduction. I appreciate that.
No, I'm serious, man. I'm serious. I love you, brother. Now, I have...
love you too, my friend.
I have...
Just wait, Chris. You ought to hear how you tease this
now,
segment.
you thought we ought to replay that. You thought I complimented you just now. As we went out of the last segment, I'm a little off balance because I'm hosting the show, but I'm also trying to cover Stephanie Bell's little segments that she does, and trying to get, this is a little more rapid pace than I'm used to either on my Saturday mornings or on my afternoon show. And so I'm the old boy's trying to catch up with the pace. So I thought you were 6:45 instead of 6:35, and so I had this great study, and I thought I did the great radio tease. And I said, coming up, the perfect male buttocks. Because there was a study on a plastic. There's a study from a plastic surgeon that I saw, and they crowdsourced this study. Then they asked 2,000 respondents what they thought, and they had different angles and the little dimple. Should it be rounder, flatter? What? And I was going to talk about that at 6:30. You not only are you a great communications expert of stage and TV and radio, but you also have the perfect male buttocks. You didn't know that.
I did not know.
Tell
that.
your lovely wife. Tell your lovely wife that. Say it's true. It's true. Okay.
And I have been called an ass a time or two, so
that's great. Oh, by the way, speaking of that, you talk about quick on his feet, and I know all of us in communications love it's that spontaneous funny like you just did. That was beautiful. Last night, I don't know if you saw Vivek Ramaswamy on with Jesse. Was it with Jesse? I think it was Jesse. And they played a deal. I guess he was on a X, formerly Twitter, what's it called? Twitter Spaces? Is that right?
Yeah.
And there was and apparently he was on there and he was using the toilet and was tinkling in the toilet. That got caught on there. And I mean, I don't know whether it was planned, but it was beautiful because Jesse was teasing him about it. He says, Vivek said, well, it was a live stream after all. And I thought, I thought, wow. That's quick. That's good stuff.
Right.
That's good stuff.
That is good stuff, kind of. I don't know.
All right.
That's kind of weird.
I have to ask you. Those kind of things happen. You know, I mean, hey, at least he wasn't Jeffrey Toobin on CNN, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
So,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Hey, Doctor. Let's talk about Dr. Bob Onder. And getting the endorsement of Missouri Right to Life. He's, of course, a recently declared lieutenant governor candidate. Your reaction?
I am excited. Dr. Bob Onder has come out of the gate strong. He put $500,000 of his own money into the race. I think his brother has given him another $500,000. So he is very, very formidable with the $1 million. Very strong Christian, very pro-life. I think he's going to be a very good candidate, and I think he's going to be a very good future lieutenant governor. I think you have to look at him as the front runner right now.
Well, and guess what? Holly Rehder, State Senator Holly Rehder, will be in studio a little bit later, 7:35. So that'll be interesting. We'll have to ask her how she, if she's strategically changing anything she's doing in her campaign with the entrance of my friend and medical colleague, Dr. Bob Onder. So we'll have to see where that goes. In another,
you know how politics goes, Dr. Tobler. It's the mother's milk of politics. You got who has the money, has a strong chance.
Yeah. Although I saw in the Columbia Missourian, speaking of the abortion issue, and Bob's strong pro-life stance.
Sure.
Apparently, there's been some pre-filing of bills, or there will be some pre-filing of bills. I didn't get a chance to read it. Perhaps, John, you saw more detail on it. But this is just one of those things in passing, and I had to move on. I didn't have time to look at it. Some pre-filing of bills that would make it permissible to prosecute women for homicide if they had an abortion. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that. I know there have been some add exceptions into our Missouri abortion law, but I have not seen that. What's your opinion on it? Let me turn talk show host for a minute. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, in an ideal unicorns and rainbows world, I think I'd like to have swift and certain punishment for anyone who murders, and it is murder. However, I don't think a woman that considers that is in that case. I think there's a case to be made that in those circumstances, those are generally such heart-wrenching and mind-bending decisions. I'm not sure they're in their in a peculiar kind of a way in their right mind. I just don't think
the bills that were filed, guys, that Republicans in both the House and the Senate did file those bills, and the ones we looked at, there were exceptions in both of the Senate and House version, including women, they said, who got abortions due to verbal or physical threats, or if the abortion was performed to prevent the mother's loss of life, a lot like the case we're hearing out of Texas right now.
Yeah, but but here's the thing. I mean, if a woman just does it, and some do for backup birth control. I mean, it's backup birth control for some women. Yeah. I think, like I said, in a beautiful world when justice is absolutely just all the time, and I do believe it is taking a human life, I think that's fine. Politically, it would be a disaster. It would be apocalyptic. That's my feeling. And I think we'd end up, those of us on the pro-life side, I think, and goes back to the old argument that we're talking about now with the initiative petition that's probably going to be on the ballot. John, you reported on KWS.com this morning. I saw a story up there.
Yeah, and we talked to Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, who's one of those many conservative representatives and senators who are pretty confident some sort of this, even with all the court challenges, is going to end up on a 2024 ballot, asking Missourians to reinstitute abortion in some way, shape, or form.
We're talking with Chris Arps, who visits us every Tuesday. Now, Chris, what is your thought? Do you think that there should be an alternate initiative petition to put some kind of an upper limit that then could be ratcheted down as cultural change occurred, hopefully? Or are you all in for, the way it is now and, seeing what happens with the IP?
I think, and our colleague Tony Colombo on the station at St. Louis has made the point that if you don't have some type of restriction, the Susan B. Anthony list has said 15 weeks. We all would like to have zero abortions, but the politics, the nation is not at that point right now. That if you don't put some type of restriction like that, then you'll end up with states in New York and California will probably end up having is abortions all the way up to birth and maybe after birth. So, a perfect world, I'd like to see zero abortions, but I'm worried about some of the restrictions, especially what's happening in Texas, where it is looking like a female who's going to have a baby that's not viable is being forced, to have the child. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough moral question.
It is.
Of course, there's a political question, there's a moral question, there's a legal question. Just trying to bundle it all together and figure it out is very difficult.
Yes, I think this is one of those sometimes best is the enemy of better. And ultimately, prayer and supplication will win the battle here, not legislation. That's my opinion. Hey, U.S. Senator Josh Hawley sent a letter to the EPA. This was a story I really haven't heard reported, a briefing on the EPA on a chemical spill in St. Louis. Tell us about it.
Yeah, a lot of folks in North County are aware of, the Manhattan Project. A lot of that research was done here in St. Louis, and a lot of that atomic waste was dumped over by the airport. And over the years, that atomic waste seeped into Coldwater Creek, which goes across St. Louis County all the way across North County. I think it empties into the Mississippi River. There have been cases of abnormal cancers and diseases along that path, and it's affected me personally. My father, another friend of mine, his father, a close personal friend that I grew up with, and another friend's brother, all have died of pancreatic cancer within the last 10 years or so. And there's other instances of there was a elementary school in the Hazel School District that was closed for a while because it was near Coldwater Creek, and some of the grounds were said to be contaminated. So Senator Hawley was trying to introduce something into the National Defense Authorization Act, compensation for some of the victims and the people that live along Coldwater Creek that are affected, and it was stripped out of the NDAA. And so Senator Hawley, as he should be, was not very pleased about that.
Yeah, it's that's one of those things that is the gift, sadly, that keeps on giving, right? And I mean, it's just the EPA. Isn't it funny how they sometimes miss the target on the important things in life? You know, they're worried about the snail darter somewhere out in California, wet weather creek, you know, and then instead of the things that are killing people. And so, yeah, we'll have to see. Hey, I wanted to get to talk to you about the polling. Can you hang Hannah and John Marsh, Brian Hauswirth, and Chris Arps hangs with us every Tuesday, and he's hanging an extra segment today, and we thank you for that, Chris, hanging out. Hey, man, the polls are interesting. CNN poll saying that both in Michigan, 10 points in Michigan, and in Georgia, 8 points ahead for Trump over Biden. If you believe that either, but especially Biden, will be the candidate, that's a whole other discussion. Some interesting movement in the polls.
There are a lot of polls out. There was a Wall Street Journal poll that came out that showed President Biden at 37% approval. That's the lowest he has been in that particular poll. You've got the Des Moines Register, Iowa caucus poll. The gold standard of polls for Iowa has Donald Trump at 51% of the vote in the Iowa caucus. He's got less than 40 days to go. And some other polls, as you mentioned, in Michigan that showed the president former president, ahead of current President Biden. One interesting part of that poll that showed that in head-to-head matchup, DeSantis was tied with Biden, but Nikki Haley had a 17-point lead over Biden, and I think Donald Trump had a 5 or 6 lead poll. So that's something that I found very interesting. But if these polls are any indicator, especially one in Iowa, I think the Republican nominee will be Donald Trump, Dr. Tobler.
John Marsh, you had a question for Mr. Chris.
Yeah, Chris, what's going on with the Archdiocese of St. Louis? We're hearing the stories about schools in Ferguson and South County and all. A couple dozen Catholic elementary schools in St. Louis may close.
Well, I mean, you've seen a closing of Catholic schools for years now. You know, at one time, North County, where I grew up, was heavily Catholic, blue-collar. Those schools have closed. You've had a couple of high schools that have closed up there. There was a plan recently. The Archdiocese had to close a bunch of schools. One of them was St. Mary's High School, Dr. Tobler, where Joe Rush went to high school, and former Mayor Slay went there as well. They put on a big push to have that school to remain open. But, I mean, I think it's just a fact that, Catholics are moving out of particular areas in the city, and there's no need for those schools. The St. Louis City School District is having the same thing, where they have having a surplus of schools. People are fleeing St. Louis City.
Let me play something for you. Remember that last week the left got all in a tizzy over Donald Trump's off-the-cuff statement that, first day he'd be a dictator, like doing all the right things, like closing the border, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. But then this is what he said about his 10-point plan and his outline for what he would do to break down the deep state. And I just wonder if he's fueling more of that kind of pushback from the left. Listen.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all. And corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them.
Okay, and he goes on and on and on, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's objectively fair to say, isn't it, that it sounds like he's the sole judge, jury, and HR person when it comes to cleaning out bureaucrats. And while he may have that authority, what happens when the shoe's on the other foot?
I hope, Randy, that the rhetoric that we're hearing from the president is rhetoric that he is using because he is still engaged in a Republican primary, even though he has a very large lead and is probably going to be the nominee. I don't know if that rhetoric will be quite as successful in a general election. It plays into what the left says, that he is a closet dictator and all of that. So I hope this is Republican primary rhetoric to get the base riled up more than actual rhetoric he will use during the campaign. general campaign.
I see the sweat coming from your brow as you say you hope.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, gosh darn it, I think we know what he means. We're going to reform those agencies. We need to stop weaponizing institutions that we formerly respected. I just think he's loading the gun for a general shoot yourself in the foot. I don't know. Chris, always a pleasure.
I hope not.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, brother. And
thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, Mid-Missouri. How you doing? Glad you're with us. I'm Randy Tobler. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
And John Marsh.
Good morning. I set my coffee cup down.
Ah, that's good. And and joining us now, Congressman Mark Alford from Missouri's 4th Congressional District. How you doing, Congressman Alford? Good to have you with us.
I am. Thank you. I'm doing great. You guys sound awesome.
Now, well, it's even going to get awesomer. I know you as a communications expert. You love creating new words. I know. Okay, it's going to get awesomer. You don't know whose birthday it is today, Congressman Alford, but I know this will float your boat. I know this wasn't your era. I know you're younger than this, but tell me if you can name who this is, because I think actually it's named. But you tell me whose birthday this is.
All right.
Here we go.
Is love, sweet love.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Dionne Warwick.
Now, there you go.
It's the only thing.
It's Dionne Warwick's birthday?
It is. The Great American Songbook, right? When families were families, borders were secure. That's when America was great, and we need to make it great again. Hey, by the way, I see that you have filed a bill to make agencies accountable. Tell us about it.
Well, look, I think it's very important that we get agencies back on the right track. We've actually filed 2 bills recently to do that. You know, I'm on the Small Business Committee, one of the congressional access to bureaucratic offices. When I got here 11 months ago, and I got on the Armed Services Committee, which oversees the Pentagon, I got on the Small Business Committee, which oversees the Small Business Administration, and I got on the Ag Committee, which oversees the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I said, I want to go visit these people. I want to go see where they work. I want to meet people. I've always done that in the television business. I didn't stay in the newsroom. I went and visited people in the so-called traffic department. I visited people in the billing department. I visited people in the sales department. I wanted to get to know people and where they worked. And that's what I wanted to do. They would not let us in the building. A sitting member of Congress could not go in certain buildings in these bureaucratic agencies. I couldn't believe it. So we had to file a bill. I call it the Cabo Act. After all, who doesn't like Cabo? And to get access to these buildings, we finally went last week to the Small Business Administration and met with the Administrator Guzman, who refused, by the way, to come testify before our committee on small business about $200 billion that had been ripped off from the American people through the PPP loan program during COVID. She would not come testify. We went to go meet her. We finally did that, but we are starting to make some headway on getting these agencies to realize that they work for the American people just like we do, and they need oversight. We need to work together to make it function properly.
Talking with Congressman Mark Alford this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Congressman, how concerned are you over the Houthi rebels, the Iran-backed crew, and all the missiles and all that they're shooting at U.S. Navy ships and all? Where is this all headed?
I am very concerned. You know, Iran is behind this all. George Bush called them part of the axis of evil, and people mocked him for that, and truly they are. They have their fingerprints on everything that's going on right now in the Middle East. They have a design, a plan to be the representative of Islamic terrorism around the world. And they're fulfilling that mission by arming the Houthi rebels, by arming Hezbollah, by arming Hamas. The massacre that happened on October 7th, the horrific butchering of Jewish people, has the fingerprints are from the Iranians. They want to see a disruption so that they can be the consummate power in the Mideast. And when you have a president like President Biden, who is releasing more funds that have been frozen so that Iran can use those funds for humanitarian or whatever BS reason they're giving, and then turn around and be able to use other money to fund Islamic terrorism. We've got a big problem. This administration needs to wake up, smell the coffee, and quit funding Islamic terrorism promulgated by Iran.
Congressman, it's always a pleasure to have you join us live. We appreciate you taking time to talk to us. You're on armed services, and I had a veteran here at the radio station last week. I'm actually working on a story on it because it's trying to do a little bit of research. But his father was in the jungles of Vietnam, did 2 tours, his late father, and was sprayed by Agent Orange. And this gentleman lives kind of in the Versailles area, and he's right on the edge of you in Congressman Luetkemeier's district. Not critical. He's not critical of you two at all, but basically what he's saying is this, and I'll keep it as simple as possible because it's just horrific. He has what's known as MG, and he has a hard time speaking, this gentleman, and again, you'll hear it in a story coming up. It's called myasthenia gravis, and he said that
yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, he said it's Congressman known to be caused by Agent Orange. He brought me some documents. He said he's a victim, he says, of this toxic herbicide because of his father's tours. But he says for children of male veterans, the only condition recognized by Congress for compensation is spina bifida. The Congress does not recognize MG. That's what he's saying, and that appears to be the case. That's according to that's what he's saying, and does appear to be the case. What can he do? What can Congress do to address this? This man has a hard time talking and can't work. He had a hard time even getting in here.
Well, I tell you what, I would love to. I know Blaine would love to as well. I would love to personally see that file.
Sure.
If we could get that to Grace in our Lebanon office, she handles VA benefits. She's a specialist on that. If you go to our website, alford.house.gov, it has the addresses and phone numbers for our 3 offices. By the way, we're having our grand opening, and I want to invite you guys for our Columbia office, December 18th. We have some great field workers there, case workers, but our office in Lebanon handles the military affairs and veterans affairs. I want that case. I'm going to talk to Blaine about it. I'm also going to talk to the chairman of the Veterans Committee, Mike Boast, about this, and we'll try to find some answers. I'll work directly on this for this gentleman.
Well, I will follow up with Grace and get that. This gentleman, it was not emailed. He actually brought it in, so I'll have to have it scanned, but we'll get that. And Congressman, I appreciate you following up on that. We'll try to get over to your grand opening as well in Columbia. We appreciate you coming in.
Will there be some Whistle Pig or Jack Daniels in the eggnog?
It is a government office. However, afterwards, we might go out for a little conversation.
All right, we'll take you up on that. I'll even buy. I'll buy on that one. Hey, Hunter Biden, the walls might be closing in from a legal perspective, and we've heard about the indictment, of course, of last week, Congressman Alford. But what about the impeachment informal inquiry vote that might happen today? We hear that there may be 1 or 2 holdouts. I assume that's not you. How's that looking?
No. Hey, I've been pushing for this impeachment inquiry since this summer. We know that the big guy has been on the take. I feel like Biden is the most compromised president in U.S. history. These millions of dollars that has flowed into all these phony LLCs and shell companies that have gone to the Biden crime family. Checks now that we have records of that have been written directly to Joe Biden from other family members who've received some of this money. And so these 3 committees, the Judiciary Committee, Oversight Committee, and Ways and Means Committee, by the way, Ways and Means is headed up by Jason Smith of our delegation, who's the chair of Ways and Means. He's doing a great job. They are putting these links together. But although we started the inquiry process informally in September, we never really had the strength and the formalization that we needed. All right, so that's what this vote will do. It will force people to comply with these subpoenas. Hunter Biden is due to have a deposition behind closed doors, which is the way that things are done here. You have a longer deposition behind closed doors and then a public committee hearing. He is due for that under subpoena on this Wednesday before James Comer and the Oversight Committee. And James Comer is saying if Hunter Biden does not show up, then he will be held in contempt of Congress. We'll see what happens. It's important that we get to the truth. Where did all this money come from? Why was it given to the Biden crime family? And how compromised is the President of the United States? This is a matter of national security.
Big question on the table that I think a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans are looking at historical reality when it comes to impeachment protocol. Let's just, whether it's an impeachment, whether it's an inquiry, whether it's beating the drums. I mean, you look at what happened with Bill Clinton. It backfired on the Republicans in the 90s. Donald Trump, it backfired on the Democrats. Look at the way his poll numbers and popularity have increased. Are you concerned that an impeachment, whether just at the inquiry level or beyond, could backfire on the Republican Party in this upcoming cycle?
Well, I'm always a little bit concerned about that, but my main concern, I'm telling you right now, my main concern is about the security of our nation. I am here as a member of Congress to represent the 772,047 people of my district, but I'm also here to help with the security of America. And being on the Armed Services Committee, I get these private classified briefings about the dangers from the pacing threat of Communist China, the danger from Vladimir Putin, the danger from North Korea. We are at a point in our nation's history, our world history, where we have to be careful about everything that influences us and may influence our leaders as they make important decisions about how we move forward. And if this president is on the take from Xi Jinping, who he calls a friend and who he likes to meet with and send his emissaries, like the Secretary of State over there, to try to kiss up and curry favor and talk about climate change. We don't need climate change legislation. We need change in the presidency. And if the facts lead to an impeachment, so be it. I'm not saying we should impeach the president right now. This is a formal inquiry step so that we can get the information that we need that could possibly lead to articles of impeachment. And even then, that doesn't necessarily mean that the U.S. House of Representatives would basically indict the president with articles of impeachment being finalized. It simply means that the process is moving forward. And that's something that the Democrats, I think, they ruined the process by the way they went after President Trump. And I think they lost favor in the sights of Americans and trust, I believe, with the way they did it. We're trying to regain that trust.
Yeah, I like the way it's been prosecuted so far. I mean, I think it's been conducted in a much more above-board manner, and we don't have Adam Schiff coming out at after a closed-door meeting saying he's got the goods on Trump when it was just a bold-faced lie. Congressman Alford, always great to be with you, to have you with us, and we'll make sure and try to stop in on the 18th at the grand opening of your Columbia office. Send us a release on that. We'll get the word out, and we wish you the best for a Merry Christmas. Now, I'm going to leave you with another birthday boy today, born in 1915, and I know you weren't born until 1970. I don't know. I have no clue. But here we go.
63, actually.
63.
Right,
okay, you have 5 years on me. Here we go as we head out today. Thanks so much for being with us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
You almost had it, Randy.
Oh, man.
Almost.
Well, it's 27
Ish.
now.
Ish.
There you go.
There you go.
What's up?
We need to make that an official unit of measurement around here.
Ish, yeah.
Is ish. Real quickly, before I dive into the story I have for What's Hot with Hannah, we were talking about Chris Arps' assets earlier.
Yeah.
You may have teased that he may or may not have had the perfect glutes.
I thought I didn't realize he was going to be on that segment. I thought it was the next segment, and I was teasing a story that a plastic surgeon did a story on what makes the perfect man's gluteal region.
Well, anyway, Mrs. Arps has weighed in on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page on the live video feed of the show.
And what's the word?
She just wants us to know that she is well aware of his assets.
Oh!
And there is a winky face. So.
And it gets better. The plastic surgeon's first name, the last name was Dr. Patel. The first name was Dr. A. I'm going to spell it, John, and you can pronounce it because you're an expert in all things Indian. A-S-H-I-T. I'm just telling you, that's the way the first name is spelled. Go ahead. What's hot with Hannah?
So, Randy, I don't know about you, but I notoriously have bad luck.
Yes.
I'm notorious for missing, accomplishments or things by like 1 point or one step, like this close all the time.
Close, but not quite.
Pretty much. Mm-hmm. Or, I get something by just barely 1 point. I'm right on the level all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, this lady who was 104 years old is experiencing similar luck as producer Hannah here. Mm-hmm. She went skydiving in early October. So
104.
Again, 104 years old.
Wow.
She went skydiving on October 1st, and she was trying to get the Guinness World Record for oldest woman to skydive. And before Guinness could confirm that she had broken the world record, I'm going to try not to laugh, she passed away.
Oh, on the way down?
No.
I was saying a skydiving accident or something?
No. She passed away almost a week later after she had, jumped out of the plane. So they weren't able to, confirm that she was the new world record holder before she unfortunately passed away.
So she got it posthumously? I mean, she did the jump, right?
Yeah.
John, we need to award it to her posthumously.
I think we should.
I don't know if that's how that works, though.
Yeah. And it is Sinatra's birthday, and she almost flew with him, sort of. Senator Holly Rehder in the studio as we roll along and wake up mid-Missouri. Hannah, the producer's over there.
What up?
John Marsh is over there.
Good morning.
And Holly Rehder's over there. How you doing, Holly?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Now, we have to set the table right away.
Okay.
I'm a traditional guy, and I've always been taught that you show great respect and deference to authority. You're not my senior. I'm your senior, clearly. But is it okay if do you want to be called Senator Rehder or Holly? What do you prefer?
Please call me Holly.
Okay. I mean, because, all right. I just want to be proper.
Now, do I need to call you
I'm
Doctor?
I'm Randy.
Okay.
Yeah. The only time I'm doctor is when I'm getting sued up on the stage. Doctor!
Yeah.
Now you're a provider if you're a doctor. When I ran a little hospital, we didn't use the word provider because it's disrespectful.
Really?
Well, think about it.
Now
you don't tell your attorney, are you a provider of counsel? No, you're an attorney. You're a lawyer,
That's
right?
true.
So I think there's a time for respect and a time not. But at any rate. Okay. So I'm looking at a copy of your book here, Cinder Girl, which you gave me, a signed copy. There it is, as you look on the thing. Look at that. Tell us, we're going to talk about your lieutenant governor run, how things are going.
Excellent.
But let's talk about the book, too, and about your story.
Yes, I've been very blessed. I grew up quite different from what you typically find in elected officials. I grew up single mom who dealt with mental illness her entire life. We moved over 30 times from the end of my 3rd grade to the beginning of my 10th grade when I had to quit school to help take care of her and my little sister. We'd been in a bad car accident. So at 15, I quit school. I also married my 21-year-old boyfriend at the time. And
boys do mature later after all.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on Hauswirth to grow up. I'm telling you.
Hey,
and we go to the swimming pool, and he's got these little squirty, rubber ducky dolls he plays with. But that's okay. Yeah. Little toy gun, squirt gun, whatever.
We love you,
Brian.
We all still like those.
We love you, brother.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you got married at age 15. Your husband was 21. Okay.
Yeah. So I really had to look at my life. I mean, I was a high school dropout, 15, pregnant, and the picture on the front of my book is me 16, standing in the trailer park with my baby on my hip. And, I really had to look at my life and the life I was fighting to get out of.
Stereotypical Missouri rural poverty.
Well, right. And exactly. And, the life I'd grown up in and was fighting to get out of, I was about to give to my child. And so I really had to put my head down and work and trust God. And I took whatever jobs I could get. I was a hotel maid. I was a nanny, waitress. I'm dyslexic. The waitressing thing was awful. I'm not good at that. But I did whatever I could. I got my GED a few years later because I had to take classes at night and on the weekends. I missed the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Plus being dyslexic, that was a little bit of a disadvantage. I needed a little extra help. So took those classes after work at night and on the weekends. Got my GED. It took me 17 years to get my degree, but I did it while working my way up in a company. I started in the mailroom of a cable company at 19, worked my way up to being one of the top directors. I applied for different jobs as they came available. Some of them I got, some of them I didn't. Put my head down and I worked. And that was, fighting my way out of poverty is something I'm very proud of and very thankful to God because I know He's the one that opened those doors. I raised my children in church. As Director of Government Affairs for the cable company is when I started being asked to come to Jefferson City and work on some bills that affected the industry. That was my very first look at government. And I really felt there wasn't a voice that sounded like mine. There wasn't anyone from the community I grew up in. I felt like there were a lot of people talking about a lot of things for a system that I knew that people had, on both sides of the aisle, had worked on our welfare system to help people, but I knew firsthand that it was actually a system that prevented people from ever rising to their potential. And so it was that really made me desire, on top of we were just starting our own business from the ground up and was dealing with the Department of Revenue and just getting paperwork, processed, that really made me say, okay, I want to do this when I knew nothing about politics.
So you learned as a lobbyist the jungle that the bureaucracy and the political scene is.
Well, I was a government affairs official, so my job was the cable industry, but I was.
Isn't that another word for lobbyist?
It wasn't my full time. Like, I know. Coming to Jeff City was like 5% of what I was doing in my job.
So let me ask you this real quick. I have maintained, not being blessed to not have to, nor my parents having to depend on the welfare system. But we know that the design of the welfare system philosophically has nominally been to give a hand up, not a hand out.
Right, that's what it's supposed to be.
My favorite description of the welfare system these days is it's gone from a safety net to a hammock. What say you?
Oh. Yeah,
you can use that on the stump, but just give attribution.
Okay, I will. That's an accurate description. A few years ago, we did a great. Senator Sater really crafted a wonderful reform of actually having to hit benchmarks. What's called TANF now. I always call it welfare because that's what I grew up on. But where you have to hit benchmarks, we shorten the amount of time that you can be on it. And you have to hit benchmarks like volunteering or in school or working, where before you could just flip through, you had to fill out something showing you were looking for a job, but you could flip through the phone book and just write down businesses and turn it in. I mean, that's what, I watched that happen 1,000 times. But we're getting there, but we're not there yet.
Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Good to see you.
As always, and we appreciate your service. I do want to ask about just a kind of the larger topic of poverty in general, because you live in that area, southeast Missouri, and I went down there for a series of stories a few years ago, and just to your district is very poor. You go south of your district to the Boot Heel. Those are some of the poorest counties in the state. They've had hospital closings. You know this better than anyone. What can be done to address the poverty that is just awful? They're hardworking folks, but there aren't a lot of, in some of those communities, there just aren't very many jobs.
Right. And then they don't have hope. And, a lot of, with us being right there on the Arkansas border, and look, this is one of the reasons why I fought for right to work so much, because that is absolutely a policy that the Boot Heel lost jobs because we were not a right to work state. To Arkansas, we have a lot of people in the Boot Heel who go right across the state line and work at factories there that we should have gotten or that we had a hold on, and then they ended up going over there. Thousands of jobs. And so we are losing out in the Boot Heel because that is the area that we're at. Education is very lacking, and we education on health and taking care of yourself, but the family component has just been lost. And our churches really try, but it's kind of been a tsunami down there of all of these economic factors and social factors combined with the loss of families.
And the only thing I would, and you'll know this too, that this significantly changed from when we were both growing up down in that area, particularly your district, is all the shoe factories. Those shoe factories, Buster Brown, they provided middle class incomes, and a man or woman could work in there and support a family on working at the shoe factory. They're all gone, and they've all gone either to Mexico or China. Right in your district.
Right, absolutely, they have. I worked at a factory in Cape and a factory in Saxton because I am a seamstress, and it's a little factoid y'all didn't know.
Working 9 to 5.
I love it. I love sewing. My grandma taught me when I was very young. But making men's suits at Thorngate in Cape. We did clothing in Saxton. But those jobs, man, they were great paying and with some benefits, you know. And but in the boot hill, they've lost that. And so the one thing that we have been able to do that I think is going to really show some positive benefits is we've been focusing on getting more of the trades back into the high schools. And so the welding programs, the automotive programs, those are programs in our high schools that can absolutely leap into a good paying, great job with benefits. And I'm for four-year institutions. I'm for trade schools. I'm for these programs, certificate programs in our high schools. We have to have everything on the table because a kid that grew up like me, you tell us we can go to college for free. It's like, yeah, but what am I going to do when I get there? Where am I going to get sheets for my bed? Where am I going to, there's all these different factors that weigh in, not just, oh, you can go with the Pell Grant, go free.
Yeah. So, and all of the above when it comes to education, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're listening to Senator Holly Rehder, who's a candidate for lieutenant governor. We'll get into that after the upcoming break. Real quickly, John.
Out at the corner Walmart with $700 worth of stolen stuff in her cart. Turns out the woman made a break for the door. It was a Saturday morning, had a cart full of beer, clothes, and steaks that she apparently didn't intend to pay for. So as she went sprinting by with her full cart, it happened the store participating in, you guessed it, Shop with a Cop. A clerk grabbed one of these 75 police officers, and one police lieutenant says, it did surprise me when you see 75 cops in the store. I mean, maybe she thought we were just too busy. They grabbed her in the parking lot. Kids and parents thought it was all part of the Shop with a Cop thing, but we understand they did not volunteer to pay her bail, however. And now, Senator, you know the rest of that story.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Hey, let's talk about the campaign. Dr. Bob Anders throwing his hat in the ring. You are running for lieutenant governor. He's running for lieutenant governor. How do you differentiate yourself? You're both conservative. So what are the differentiators?
Right. I would say that our votes are consistent with each other 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. The things that I have worked on are, and the things that I'm passionate about are the things that I saw growing up, horrific domestic violence, sexual abuse, the foster care system, sex trafficking, those are the things that I've worked on over the years, drug addiction, the opioid crisis. And so what I see the lieutenant governor's position as, you are the ombudsman, of course, for our veterans, which is incredibly important, our elderly, and you are the face of tourism. Well, that's not a full-time job, right? And to me, you can really delve into some policy issues like our foster care system, which is outpaced any other state our size. We have over 6,000 children who cycle through the system each year from substance abuse homes. Sex trafficking, Missouri is number 4th on the worst list in the U.S. We just finished our last year a bill that we passed to have an interim committee council on sex trafficking to find out what our issues are. We just finished our report yesterday, that committee. And so those are the things that we have worked on, I think, will differentiate us.
Okay. What kind of, are you pre-filing as time is now? What kind of things are you looking at for the upcoming legislative session?
Yes. So I have filed the bill for the task force that we just came off on, the sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. I have also filed a bill when it comes to our foster kids that are children who have lost a parent and get Social Security benefits. Mm-hmm. Well, those benefits have been going into the state's general revenue, where so essentially they're paying for their own foster care where other kids aren't, where many states, and this has been a push that's been going through the U.S., many states set that money aside so that when they age out of the system, they have some money set aside that they can use for, and it has guardrails on it for different things to really help them get a leg up. Because the way that we see our foster system is such a high percentage of those children, once they age out, end up in jail somewhere, end up in substance abuse. Those are the things that we really need to do to delve in and really make some significant changes in our state. And I think coming from someone in the executive branch to have them focused on some of these things that are affecting our families could really be transformative for our state.
I know you've been a champion of the prescription drug monitoring program, and that caught a lot of ire from staunch conservatives who said, hey, what are you doing getting into my business and knowing about that? From the medical side, I have to ask you, I think some of us are concerned about that it's there doesn't bother me. If it becomes mandatory and doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs need to be policemen and women, that would bother me.
Right.
What do you think about that?
No, I would agree.
Because there are some states where it's mandatory.
I would agree. And, in the states that it's mandatory, they have seen a better outcomes, right? That doctors have to look at it before they prescribe. But with what I have seen with Missouri being the last state, our medical community needed this so bad. And of course, as you know, only your doctor can see your information.
Right. Missouri's Attorney General Andrew Bailey joining us. There's always something going on in your office, General Bailey, and I see you're trying to get some documents from Washington University, and they're being pretty stingy.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I mean, again, I want Missouri to be the safest state in the nation for children. We've been on this issue about child sterilization and mutilation by these quote-unquote transgender clinics. We've been on that since day one when I was in office. We launched an investigation. We aided the General Assembly in getting a bill passed and then successfully defended that bill to put a stop to child sterilization in Missouri. But the investigation into the original clinic is ongoing, and we've gotten several batches of documents from the clinic, and the clinic agreed to turn over a subsequent batch of documents and then later declined and changed their mind and said, well, it's a HIPAA issue. And there's a textual in the statute, the HIPAA statute, there's a textual basis for an exception for when there's a state-level investigation like this kind. So HIPAA doesn't apply in this instance. And certainly we're never going to use patients' personal health care information in the public domain. But the state has regulatory authority over these types of clinics and needs to be able to look at what's going on and make sure that it's conforms to the legal requirements. And so that's what this investigation is about. And my concern now is that federal officials have interfered in the investigation and have motivated the clinic to refuse to turn over the documents. So that's what we're fighting against in court, and we're confident in our ultimate success.
Yeah, I my recollection as a doc is that, when there's an investigation, when it's a matter of a federal or a state investigation, that, HIPAA gets waived in terms of my obligation to hold those very close to the vest, right? Because HIPAA, basically, the spirit of HIPAA is only those who need to know, right, and have access, and that would be an investigation of the type you're undertaking, because this whole business with this grand experiment we're doing on youngsters with that really have mental illness. There's no doubt we feel sorry for these kids. I mean, this is a central issue in terms of the state's obligation to protect the safety of its individuals.
Yeah, that's right. And at the end of the day, we should be making sure that these kiddos that are confused about their gender receive psychiatry and psychology and are provided access to mental health services, not race down this assembly line towards child sterilization with the administration of powerful, life-altering, dangerous drugs like puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and irreversible surgeries. I mean, the kids that we've talked to that have undergone these procedures and are now adults, they're serving life sentences because their lives are forever changed. And that was some of the evidence we put on when we defended the bill the General Assembly enacted to put a stop to this. And those were moving victim statements that I think ultimately motivated the court to allow the law to go into effect. And so proud of the win we delivered there. But at the end of the day, we've got to finish this investigation. We've got to have access to these documents so we can explain to the public what went on here and what went wrong so we can prevent it from ever happening again.
Talking with Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Now you have a tiff going on with Media Matters, one of our favorite left-wing organizations. What's going on there?
Well, first of all, let me say I believe in the right to free speech because it's the foundation of our republic, and we're in a fight against radical progressive tyrants who will lie, cheat, and steal in an attempt to take that freedom away. The allegation here is that Media Matters used fraud to solicit donations from Missourians in order to coordinate an attack on the last platform dedicated to free speech in America, X, formerly known as Twitter. And so we're launching an investigation to protect Missourians from fraud and manipulation and fighting to ultimately protect our right to free speech. As you pointed out, Media Matters is built on lies. This is a radical progressive advocacy group that's masquerading as a news organization. And the concern here is that they lied when they took money from everyday Americans and Missourians and used it to defraud advertisers on Twitter. They manipulated the algorithms on Twitter in order to emphasize controversial speech and bully Twitter and its advertisers. And now these advertisers are pulling out of Twitter. And that's the whole thing. The point of this, from Media Matters' perspective, was to destroy the last platform dedicated to free speech in America. We're not going to let them rip off Missourians in this market manipulation in an attempt to destroy free speech in America.
General, how's that all factor into the ongoing case that you have, Missouri versus Biden, over sort of the same issue?
Well, that's exactly right. And Missouri was first out of the gate on this issue. We've been leading the fight for free speech. We fought government censorship on big tech in the case Missouri v. Biden. This is the most important First Amendment suit in this nation's history. We were able to obtain a nationwide injunction on the 4th of July to stop government censorship on big tech. We've defended that injunction twice. We're now going to the United States Supreme Court. We've also litigated against the gag order that was placed on President Trump. But what Media Matters is doing represents a new front in the war for free speech. Now that these radical progressive tyrants are using these progressive advocacy groups to manipulate the marketplace to destroy the last platform dedicated to free speech. And so, look, if the left wants to destroy Twitter because they can't control it. And so that's what we're up against.
General Bailey, we appreciate you joining us live. I want to give our listeners, and General, I've got a very important question for you. I want to give our listeners a quick update right now. We've been reporting on this fire in Columbia that has impacted traffic on I-70 with the smoke and everything. I just got a text back from Fire Chief Farr in Columbia, and he's been out on the scene all morning, and it was the self-storage units in the 300 block of Nebraska Avenue that caught fire. There's no reports of any injuries, and he does not have a cause of that fire or origin yet, but a lot of damage there. So authorities are still on scene. So thank you to the chief for getting back to me. General Bailey, we had a case here, and I'm not going to ask you your opinion on the case because it's just happened, but just a general question about it. A 27-year-old guy named John Williamson accused of killing a 27-year-old woman Friday night. Domestic violence incident is what is alleged in the court documents, and he's also accused back in January of punching her in the head 20 times. I'm using that as a highlight because an example of some of the cases we've had in Columbia just last year. According to the city manager and the police department, 9 of the 11 homicides involved domestic violence. This one is clearly alleged to be domestic violence. What as a state can be done with your office to stop these just horrible domestic violence incidents without specifically talking about this? I used to use that as an example.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a prosecutor first and a politician second. I've personally prosecuted numerous domestic violence cases, and those are some of the most important cases because if you don't put a stop to that cycle, it ultimately will end up in a worse place than just physical abuse. It can end up in death. We've seen that time and time again. It is important that police investigate those crimes, which largely they do, and prosecutors have to charge the defendants, keep them behind bars, and ultimately try those tough cases to jury. And so as a state of Missouri, we've got to be committed to enforcing the law as written and holding wrongdoers accountable. And I would also point out that, look, the state of Missouri has taken leaps and bounds to ensure that justice can be found for the victims in those cases. We enacted a statute that codified the forfeiture by wrongdoing doctrine in the state of Missouri. That's a constitutional principle that says if the defendant has made the victim unavailable for trial to not be able to testify, then the victim statement can come in at trial. And so that's an important weapon in the prosecutor's arsenal to make sure that we're holding wrongdoers accountable. You know, at the Missouri Attorney General's office, we prosecute cases across the state. We've seen a 133% increase in the number of requests for our office to come in and prosecute criminals since I took office, and it's because of the relationships I have with prosecutors across the state. And so those relationships matter. I believe that safer streets equal prosperous communities, and we're always going to fight to back the blue, hold wrongdoers accountable, and find justice for victims.
We're talking with Missouri's Attorney General, Andrew Bailey. General Bailey, we've had not 2 but 3 texts asking about if you're keeping a close eye on what's going on in the city of Columbia with a proposal that is apparently under consideration by the city council, at least that was the discussion, to make Columbia an LGBTQA sanctuary city and subordinate, policing in terms of biological males using the female bathroom and I guess vice versa.
Look, we're not going to let progressive city leaders undermine state statute. When the General Assembly enacts a statute, that is the will of the people expressed through their elected representatives, and it preempts local control over that issue. And city leaders know that, and so that would be illegal, unconstitutional. We would fight back against that. We've proven a commitment to doing that elsewhere. At the end of the day, the rule of law matters. When the General Assembly enacts statutes, the state of Missouri is going to carry out those statutes, and the city's going to have to do that as well.
Yeah, I would just point out, Randy, I did not see the text, and General, I appreciate you letting us know. Right now there is no ordinance that is before
no.
at this point, but
it's been requested.
The callers are correct in that we've had two different
by an activist group on campus,
and one was someone who works in the business community here.
Right.
I believe a business person. The other one's a student, but they did request it. The status of those is they are before the last I checked on it with the Carlin Seawood himself at City Hall a couple of weeks ago when they were announcing the police chief. They are being reviewed. Those proposals are being reviewed by the legal department and the Human Rights Commission. At this point, there's nothing before the council, but absolutely it could come before them. But at this point, it is not.
And let me make 2 points here, because I think it's important for the people of the city of Columbia to understand this. That number one, first of all, I have personally prosecuted a convicted sex offender who was hiding in a female bathroom stall at a truck stop, perpetrating on female victims. I mean, that is what we're up against. Again, this isn't just some academic exercise in celebrating diversity. There are actual criminals who seek to take advantage of these types of things to perpetrate on new victims. And we can't let that happen. I prosecuted that case, took it all the way to the Court of Appeals. It's now the leading case on trespass first. So look, if you've got people using the wrong bathrooms, that can be a trespass charge. And that's a powerful weapon we can use to protect people, to prevent, criminal defendants, predators from making new victims. And so I think it's important to keep that in perspective. And also shame on the progressives who would want to push this and put police in the middle of that. Yeah. They want to use police officers, hardworking men and women in uniform who, go to work every day and put their lives on the line to keep the rest of us safe. And progressives are going to use them as pawns in some radical social experiment. Shame on them.
If we may move to the national scene, I'm just curious, as a prosecutor, we're watching Special Counsel Jack Smith in the election interference prosecution of Trump there in D.C., Donald Trump, asking the Supreme Court to basically waive the usual appellate process in terms of Trump's appeal for immunity from prosecution in that thing, citing imperative public importance and so forth. Because he's hell-bent on having a trial March 4th, right before Super Tuesday. What are your thoughts on that?
It's shameful. He wants to weaponize the federal government against President Trump. Certainly, we've seen the two-tier justice system at work here. This is how banana republics are formed, when political opponents undermine the rule of law and use the court system to target political opponents. There are three main strategic battles we're fighting to save the soul of America right now, and this is one of them. Stopping the weaponization of government against people like President Trump and other political opponents. The other two are securing the border. No border, no country. If we don't get a handle on this, we'll cease to have a country, because we will have flung open the southern border and allow criminal aliens to abuse our system. And the third is the free speech fight that we started this segment with. If we can't say, think, and discuss what we please, under our constitutional right to free speech, again, we will lose the soul of our republic. And so those are three main strategic conflicts, and you see kind of all three of them coming to a head right now. And the question before the American people is, what do you want the future to look like? Do you want to have a United States of America? Do you want to have a legacy of freedom, of safety and prosperity that we got to enjoy and hand that off to the next generation? Or we're going to lose it because we refuse to stand up and fight for our constitutional rights and for the rule of law.
General Bailey, we thank you for being with us. We know it's a busy season personally with your large family, prepping for Christmas, and, of course, all of your duties as the AG. Appreciate you being with us. Thank you. And if we don't see you before Christmas, have a merry one to you and yours.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me on. All the best to you and your listeners.
All right. There he is, Missouri's Attorney General Andrew Bailey. When we come back ahead of the markets, it's the Morning Bell. Normally with Stephanie Bell, but I'll be filling in for her on that here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Thanks for being here, gang.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
A few weeks ago, my economics professor claimed that universal basic income is the key to getting people off the welfare system in America. I was wondering if you can explain what universal basic income is and if it's a form of socialism or communism.
I have to say that if that's what the professor said, I am dumbstruck. I want you to all hear the words if I got it right. He's quoting his professor. Universal basic income is a great way to get people off welfare. Okay, are you all aware of why that's not coherent? Why isn't universal basic income welfare? That was priceless. It's like saying there is a way to get people off heroin, and that is with another drug. There you go. Meth. The way to get people off heroin is with meth. Ah, it's genius. Bloody genius. All right, why is that not answer the question? That's what it is. Universal basic income is giving everybody a check every month, and that's welfare. That's the definition of welfare. It's so ironic. It goes back to my earlier thing, crutch. It's okay to have an economic crutch, but not a religious crutch. And the irony is the people who have the religious crutch are the most opposed to economic crutches. That's the irony, because they have a healthier view of life, because they have a wisdom source called the Bible. No wisdom, you end up a professor.
This video I'm going to show you, they're teaching incorrect grammar to give a kid whatever gender pronoun they want. Psychology tells you that when you're talking about sexuality with kids, their brains are not developed. You have to raise a child, you rear a child. They don't know about sexuality. When an adult pushes some kinky sexual ideas upon them, it winds up grooming them to believe whatever the adult tells them. So this is the video by Brain Pop that our kids are spending hours in front of. This is what they're telling them about the pronouns. And ACT already gave the kids the opportunity to choose their own gender when they took the ACT. I got pictures of the forms.
Like meet Moby and Orbot. They are my best friends. Actually, yeah, they can be used as a singular pronoun too. Like if you said, I'm going to see my friend, I could ask, where do they live? Since I don't know your friend's gender identity. And some individuals prefer they as a pronoun. Like meet Orbot. They are my best friend.
We got kids that can't read and write, and then we're going to teach them incorrect grammar. I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? Who gave permission to talk about this with kids? There's two genders. If you're born with a penis and you have testicles, that's just anatomy. You're a male. If you have a vagina and ovaries, you're a female. A man cannot menstruate. A man cannot lactate and breastfeed a child. You cannot give birth if you're a man. If you want to be an adult and do whatever you want with your life, I'm okay with that. Don't push this ideology on children. I'm not going to work in a district that's okay with that. You need to make a clear statement on how many genders are there, because parents are they're already pulling their kids out of public school. They're doing homeschool options. They're going online. It's going to increase as this liberal ideology comes into our schools. This isn't a political indoctrination camp, okay? It's public education. We want to teach education, not left-wing ideas that aren't backed up by facts or science. Thank you.
Time for the morning bell ahead of the market open. It's looking good. Things are really trending upwards. Boy, as I watch it, it's up. We're up to $54 in the green for the Dow. The S&P will be pulling out of just barely negative territory. So it looks like a good market open. NASDAQ up 750. Oil.
We like green.
Yeah. Green's looking good, especially this time of year when, people are watching their bucks a little bit more. And but the market's, 36,800-ish. And heading north, so that's good to see. Oil prices continue to slump on worldwide increased production and decreased demand from China. Apparently, prices are falling in China, so they appear to be getting some. I'm talking about their retail prices. They appear to be undergoing some deflation there, John. That's I'm just really sorry.
Don't they buy almost all the Russian oil?
Yeah, they do. and paying less price than the world price. So those sanctions aren't working out very well for anyone at this point. And gold is up now. If you're Hannah, you guys got married this year.
We did.
This first Christmas, I think he owes you a nice gold necklace. It's only $2,000 an ounce.
Well, we've already had to purchase a car, so
that's
I
like
think that's
gold.
out the window.
That's like buying gold these days.
Yeah,
Man,
I paid my sales tax yesterday, so
boy,
yikes.
the price of used automobiles has just gone just out of the roof. You bought a used car recently, right? Yeah. Yeah. Which brand?
I switched to a Ford. I grew up driving Chevys, and my first Ford. Yeah.
Holy cow! Is this a family thing, or? Yeah?
My family's a Chevy family.
Are they going to speak to you at Christmas?
We'll see. The jury's still out.
You have to park across the street.
John, do you have a particular affinity for one maker or another?
I don't know. I think I've had them all over the years and had good results and bad results with most of them.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time, no matter what, whether I've had a Dodge Ram or a Ford, I haven't yet had a GMC truck. But you talk to the mechanics and like, oh, those Rams have that problem. Oh, those Fords have that. They all have their little glitches.
You just got to pay attention to what kind of gas you put in it, right?
Oh, there you go.
Yep, there it is.
There's one out of the past, Doctor.
Oh boy, she just can't let. She's getting me back for the fact that she didn't know who Dionne Warwick was on Dionne Warwick's birthday. On Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning. Hope everything's going well on this glorious day. Every day that we wake up with a pulse is a glorious day, is it not? I think so. Hey, John. John Marsh wants to. You're going to be having a special in-studio guest tomorrow. I want to make sure we get that out there, as well as a very important event going on, both in Columbia and Jefferson City. But let's talk about your special in-studio guest tomorrow.
Yeah, we've getting the folks in from Missouri Right to Life. They have just come out with their endorsement of their candidate for the Missouri Lieutenant Governor's race, and that is Dr. Bob.
Yep.
Senator Bob Onder. And for that, so we'll see what's behind their nomination. I mean, that's a pretty heavy-duty one for somebody.
Really is. And, Holly Rehder was in studio earlier. If you didn't get a chance to hear that, folks, it'll be on the podcast up later. But certainly both conservative voting records, I think absolutely different styles. Bob's an absolutist when it comes to the abortion issue.
He always has been. All the times we've had him on the radio with us, it's Susan Klein who's coming in with us from Missouri Right to Life tomorrow. So it should be interesting discussion.
How it plays out. And tomorrow, Brian Hauswirth over there. Brian, tomorrow is the food bank drive. And that'll be both in Columbia at Columbia Mall. And it's from 6A to 6P.
Yes,
right?
It is.
And then down at in Jefferson City, I'll be down at Buck Heights tomorrow, just off of 50, from 9 to 12.
And I think you're going to be involved. John's going to be involved. Hannah's going to be involved. I'll be at the Columbia Mall 4 to 6 tomorrow in the afternoon. So it's a huge need. And I think I've got a story up 939theeagle.com and KWS.com as well. I think this is significant, guys, and Hannah as well, in that not only is the food bank drive going on tomorrow, as you mentioned, Jefferson City as well at Buck Heights and in Columbia, but the Columbia Ready board meeting tomorrow will be at the food bank market, which is significant. That's going to coincide, and you've got just about every elected official, you name it, any business leader in this community. Some from Jeff City will be there as well, but primarily Columbia and Boone County will be at the food bank market to really highlight that as well. I want to mention one other thing I think is very it's huge. This goes I think one of the best events of the year, and this is Capital Caroling tonight in Jefferson City. 37 straight years. This is aired live on Zimmer Sister Station KWS. Our listeners are very familiar with it. AM 950. KWS went on the air in 1937. December of 1937 is when Capital Caroling started.
Whoa. And
this is a 3-hour performance tonight that they're going to be doing, the Jeff City High School Band and the choir and the orchestra. And it's huge. They've been doing it every year since 1986. And I know John's been running promos on KWS, but it's a big deal. It's 3 hours. And according to Steve Morse, who's already over there right now, people actually start lining up between 9 and 10 and maybe 11 o'clock this morning to go get their seats because so many people go in there. But if you have never had a chance to see it or hear it, I'd recommend you do it. And if you can't, you can listen to the radio tonight. It is spectacular. You'd have no idea these are high school students. They're just fabulous, and they do a wonderful job.
And, John, I noticed on KWS.com that there's going to be some traffic issues today. I guess some work on Highway 54.
And we think it was supposed to have started a few minutes ago, but it's a stretch of Highway 54 right over there where in Jefferson City where the on-ramp from Madison Street and the westbound exit ramp to Stadium and one lane of westbound traffic, that'll all be affected on 54 over Stadium, and it's from now until they're saying about mid-afternoon, 3:30 or so before they get that worked up. But if you're in Jefferson City and dealing with that stretch of it, you might want to find another way around during the work.
And we should highlight, since we talk. The story, the mantra on news is if it bleeds, it leads, right? So we talk about a lot of negative stuff, and in our talk,
and we have to.
And there's a lot of on the political scene, a lot of I think anxiety in folks with the border insecurity and inflation. Although the new numbers are just out, inflation year over year, while higher than desired, is down 0.1%. It's down to 3.1% year over year. But there's a lot of good things going on.
Yes.
The Cole County ambulance crews, John, made a great Toys for Tot drive. You might want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the Cole County EMS, Chief Hoy and his whole crew just brought in 58, almost 60 boxes of toys for Toys for Tots in mid-Missouri.
That's great.
And the chief wanted to do 4 trucks full of Toys for Tots this year. And he told us on Saturday when we hooked up, when we were at their Touch the Truck event at Capital West Christian Church, he told us they got 6 ambulances full of toys and a bunch of cash as well. So they're teamed up with Marine Corps Reserve, and they ran that all out to Capitol Mall where the volunteers are sorting them. And those Toys for Tots are going to be distributed to kids all over several counties in mid-Missouri.
That's fantastic.
That's a great event that John's been covering. And later today, I'm going to be at the Walmart on Grindstone. There will be first responder support that is going to do their Shop with a Hero campaign. It is just, I always have a hard time seeing this. I really do, because I'm grateful for everything I have, but it's hard. Rick Rowden's organized this and has done a really nice job. They've gotten a $3,000 grant from 2 Walmart stores. I'm not giving the exact time because I want to protect their privacy a little bit, but if you see a lot of police over there later today, which you will, a lot of police and a lot of first responders and firefighters, that is what this is about. And some of these young people have had families impacted by shootings, suicides, just horrible stuff. So this is a chance for them to just be a kid and enjoy themselves. So you're right, Randy, you are spot on. We do have to report the negative, and we do. I wish we didn't. But we also we try to report the positive as well, and I wish we didn't have to report the negative. It's just, unfortunately, it's just some of it's just absolutely awful.
Now I have to tell you though, I didn't get a chance to cover this story in the financial news. Call me old and nostalgic, but one of the things I love, we were out in North Carolina with my daughter, and she's there at Fort Liberty, formerly Fort Bragg, with our son-in-law's in Special Forces training, and for Thanksgiving. One of the big holiday things that we just do as a family every year, have always done it. Sometimes we do it, I'm at work or whatever, but we always watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I mean, it's a national tradition, right?
Yes.
Macy's shares have recently bumped up after it received a big $5.8 billion buyout offer, but that's because they're getting basically a takeover buyout offer because their fortunes continue to drop. They've slumped over the past year. The legacy retailer is struggling to keep up with online competitors. I just wonder if shopping as we know it is going to go the day of the dodo bird. I can tell you, my wife and I are going to have a date night tonight after the afternoon show. We're going to go over to the mall. We're probably going to go downtown, do some we're going to.
Oh, so I need to get you my Christmas list today. Then
I'm going to buy you Dionne Warwick's greatest hits.
Oh, there you go. On a cassette.
Exactly.
What's that?
Well, because there's something about the experience of in-person shopping.
Yes.
In person. Hannah and I were talking, since pandemic, we don't have as many in-studio guests. I loved having Holly Rehder in studio. There's something about the personal touch, being able to look someone in the eye. There's something that just doesn't come across on the video.
No,
I don't know how you feel about
I
it.
Totally agree. Absolutely. I prefer to shop in person. If I'm going to buy some clothes, I want to try them on. I want to see stuff.
Especially the Speedos. It's important.
I know this. Yeah, I know this. That in terms of
there's something about trying them on. I know you can return them if you get them online, right?
Oh, goodness.
Really? No. I'm just talking in general. My wife and my daughters are like, well, we can get it online sometimes, and then you return it. It's not the same.
And also,
more to my daughters than my wife. She likes in-person shopping.
There is a tendency. I'm not calling anybody out specifically, but some reporters like to cover everything online today, and you can cover certain meetings, but there's no substitute for being there. First of all, in court, it doesn't do you any good to look online because you're not going to get it till the next day anyway. But when I can, I do. Unfortunately, I can't be everywhere. But the only way you're going to get certain stories is to be there. And the Bobby Dawson thing that I called into you, where 3 people got ejected and they darn near had to clear the courtroom. Judge Devine said one more outburst, and he was going to clear the courtroom.
That.
I mean, I've never seen Joshua Devine that frustrated, but, when people act up. But again, the only way you get that is to be there, and it's the same as well. But I agree with you on these stores. You like to see it, and it's just a different era.
Well, and
really
we just got a text at 874-9390 from Austin saying, one of the employees at Walmart yesterday told me that a man got upset because he couldn't try on his underwear.
Oh, wait a minute now. That's going a little too far. Wait a minute now.
And again, taking it out on the employees, so sad. That's really obviously they don't let you do that. That's common sense. We had a couple years ago, again, talking about just people ruining it for everybody. A guy was last Thanksgiving. It's a man and a woman, and they threw a fit at the Cracker Barrel here in Columbia at Thanksgiving because they ran out of the pie that they wanted, and they basically, this is what they said. They said, "You've ruined our Thanksgiving." And
I would say
that is just absolutely.
Yeah. I would just say they got too crusty there.
Yeah. That's just.
I'm sorry.
As we pointed out at the time, if Brian hadn't eaten 2 pieces of pie at Cracker Barrel that day,
I understand.
But Brian's getting awfully skinny here. He's on a fast until Golden Corral opens up there. So I just pray that opens up soon. I really do. All right. Thanks, Brian Hauswirth. There he is. We're going to step aside and invite you to continue to text or call 573-874-9390 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. In a little bit, we're going to touch base with Lindsay Lopez, who's the for people in need. And that's, I guess, how I would define the organization that is led by our guest this segment. That's Lindsay Lopez, and the organization is the Food Bank of Central Northeast Missouri. How you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So have you eaten your Wheaties ahead of tomorrow, or will you eat your Wheaties tomorrow morning?
I'll probably eat them tonight, and maybe a little more tomorrow morning.
Big event.
We'll have donuts and coffee tomorrow morning,
good,
so that'll be our fuel.
Big event in Columbia and Jefferson City to support folks who are just struggling to put food on the table.
That's exactly right. And, you and I were just talking a minute ago. The need is greater than we have seen the entire time that I've been in this role, certainly, which is 9 years.
And it's called the 1-for-1 Holiday Food Drive. And, of course, we've partnered with all of the Zimmer stations, 93.9 The Eagle, of course, here in Columbia.
Commerce Bank helping us out.
I was getting there. KWOS. She posted a video earlier. I couldn't figure out how to make a pen work, and it finally turned out you had to make the clip. I've never seen this before.
Well, and because we have these,
I look like an idiot.
Cameras in the studio.
I think she's just taking good care of you.
Yeah, thank you.
I need to be managed. There's no doubt about it. So Commerce Bank inside Columbia, all of the Zimmer stations. And, of course, there will be various folks from these stations out at Columbia and at the Columbia Mall and then at Buck Heights down just off of 50 in Jefferson City. The hours?
6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm. And several other sponsors, too. We want to thank Aurora Organic Dairy, Advanced Orthodontics, The Crossing, Doug Perry Towing, Missouri Eye Consultants. That's where I get some care. Seidenstricker Nobby Partners and Hemi Construction. I know good Jeff over there. He and I had coffee recently. Great guy. And you can donate tomorrow with the Missouri Pork Association phone bank. If you can't make it out in person, you can text food to 800-500-9107. So online at 939theeagle.com or kws.com, all the details. Now, if folks come by, they can make a donation in kind or in money. What do you want more of? You want money?
Absolutely. We would never discourage the contributions of food, but the truth is because of our purchasing power, we can take that dollar and stretch it so much farther than the average consumer can by going into a retail store. With every $1 that we take in, it helps us to provide at least 4 meals to people in need.
How do you do that?
So we're part of the Feeding America network that helps us to provide these broader relationships with manufacturers, growers, retailers, on and on. We're working with growers, retailers, agricultural partners throughout our 32 county service area as well. We're always looking to be able to identify loads of food that we can acquire at no cost, at cents on the dollar. Maybe we're paying just transportation. But I will also say that that's traditionally how the food banking model has worked. And since COVID happened, our new normal is that everything costs us 3 times more than it did before.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. Plus, the distribution channels are more expensive. I mean,
they are.
The electricity and, the utilities to keep the refrigeration units going and to keep the lights on in your distribution centers. It's all gone up.
And to keep our, fleet of vehicles on the road. Equipment is much more expensive. Gas, certainly more expensive too. Our costs all the way around. But what we also know is that costs have risen for the neighbors that we serve. And that's why we're seeing more need than we have in recent times.
Talking with Lindsay Lopez from the Food Bank of Northeast and Central Missouri. Now, you have a new enterprise over on The Loop. Tell us about that.
So we know that the food bank is a recognizable brand, but people really did not know about the central pantry that we have owned and operate and staffed on Big Bear Boulevard here in Columbia for over a decade. Mm-hmm. And that space has been serving 10,000 Boone County residents on average every single month. The food bank serves 100,000 people per month. So for perspective's sake, the bulk of the people that we're serving, highest population here in Boone County, certainly, we decided that we would want to, if we could identify the right space, move that space into a location that was more central and visible and accessible. And we have found that with the food bank market. So we opened November 1st and doing just tremendous things out of that space.
And I know you told me that Hy-Vee partnered with you with some hams and so forth. So it's a big community effort from many inputs. and you're making sure it gets output to the right folks.
That's exactly
in many ways.
right.
Yeah.
We have the expertise to be able to get that food out, but we cannot do this work without all of the partners that you've mentioned. So many other partners who continue to help us throughout the year and will into the new year. And of course, all of the donors out there who choose to support and invest
Lindsay,
in our mission.
Thank you for being in the studio. I hope everyone will go out, learn about it at 939theeagle.com, KWS.com. It's a season of bounty.